It's my Ellie. She always joins me eventually. So anyway, hello and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, and today we're going to discuss the women problem. More specifically, what Lauren Chen thinks is the women problem. Before we get into it, I would like to note that I don't know Lauren, and these are my thoughts and opinions on the content she puts out for public consumption. That being said, thank you for clicking on this video, and I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons. Links to my socials and Patreon are below, along with sources and resources. And now, on to the reason we're all here. Lauren Chen is a Christian conservative YouTuber, and last month, Lauren posted a video titled The Women Problem with the subtitle, Liberal Women Are Ruining the Country. That is the video we're going to be looking at today, and I'm sure her conclusion won't involve disenfranchising half of the country. Let's get into it. I just realized that Lauren doesn't tell us how liberal women, but not liberal men, are ruining the country. I guess we're just supposed to take it on faith that they are. Anyway, we open, of course, with a TikTok that says, just like all white people have racism brainwashed into them, all males have misogyny brainwashed into them, and any male who claims not to be a misogynist is a misogynist. Not quite sure what that has to do with anything, but then we go to Lauren, who says it's pretty safe to say at this point that the right has a woman problem. I don't understand what that TikTok was doing here. I did think that perhaps Lauren was going to prove that women can also be misogynists, but instead she tells us that we think Gen Z and millennials are so progressive, but actually it's just young women who are super progressive. She backs this claim with an article from Slate, Men and Women Live on Two Totally Separate Political Planets Right Now, an article from The Hill, Young Women Are Trending Liberal, Young Men Are Not, and an article from The Independent, The Ideological Divide Between Men and Women is Growing. What's happening? I admit I do enjoy her dramatic reading of these titles. Anyway, Lauren uses these articles to set up the premise that men are essentially unchanged while women have been trending more liberal than in the past. And that is the women problem. Women are leaning away from conservatism. I think Lauren knows why that is, but she's pretending not to.
So when we were talking about the future of the conservative movement, we often say, myself included, that the right is just not very good at reaching young people. And while I still think that there is something to that, I think this data shows that it's not necessarily just that we're not that great at reaching young people. It's that specifically we are not good at reaching young women.
Why might that be? Could it be not that the right just isn't good at reaching out to young women? It's that young women have seen what conservatives are offering and they don't want it? Maybe she'll get there.
And I know there are people out there, quite a few people out there, who will be inclined to say, well, it's just because women are women and, they're more left-wing because women. And I know that scrolling through video after video on TikTok of just unhinged blue-haired feminists would, I think, understandably incline a lot of people to believe that, yeah, this is just women's natural state to be super far left.
I would be willing to bet that none of these people who talk about blue-haired feminists have actually ever met a blue-haired feminist. Weirdly, even those that talk about the ubiquitous blue-haired feminist never actually show one. Strange. It's almost like that's just a straw woman they made up. Anyway, Lauren would like us to keep a few things in mind.
Number one, this growing gap in political ideologies between the sexes, it hasn't always been this way. As all of those articles explain, this is a phenomenon that's growing, which means that 20 years ago, no, women were not that leftist. So I think it's kind of harder to argue that women have a natural inclination to be super far left radicals when this is a relatively new phenomenon.
As someone who was a young woman 20 years ago, I can promise you that leftist was in no one's vocabulary back then. Or if it was, it wasn't mainstream. Of course, Lauren is also conflating liberal and leftist as though they mean the same thing, and they don't. However, that is on purpose, and at that, I can promise you that Republicans in 2004 were not what we see in 2024. Of course, now we know that they were playing the long game, and now that the mask has slipped, well, it's no surprise that they get fewer votes. Isn't that what the gerrymandering was for? Back to Lauren, she takes us to an article about how women used to be more conservative than men, but that changed in 2017, and concludes that instead of women just being more left-leaning than men, women are just more inclined toward socialization.
And so when a country is very religious and very conservative, women, more so than men, will uphold those religious and conservative values. However, when a country is overall very liberal, very progressive, and very feminist, then yes, absolutely, women will be at the forefront of trying to push and enforce that agenda.
So basically, women are just followers. Which begs the question, why is Lauren conservative? Does she have no reason for it other than because her husband is? I find that hard to believe. Anyway, now that we've figured out it's because of socialization, what can be done about it?
When it comes to dealing with the rights woman problem, there are definitely those of you out there who will just say, well, it's simple, we need to repeal the 19th.
I don't like that this repeal the 19th has become some sort of bizarre go-to when it comes to women, but I also want to laugh and ask the people who seriously want to repeal the 19th if they know what that process would entail. However, I unfortunately suspect that this is a lot like with Roe. They can't make it illegal to vote, but they can make it as difficult as possible.
And trust me, I am no fan of the 19th Amendment myself.
Ma'am, you are Canadian.
I think it, more so than anything else, solidified in our consciousness the idea that the political process should be one person, one vote, which is not a good system. I don't believe in democracy.
If you don't believe in democracy, why did you choose to immigrate to a democracy? I'm sure Lauren and her husband could have found some non-democratic country to live in. Anyway, let's hear her rationale.
I believe individual rights and limited government are way more important than the idea of everybody having a vote. And if the past few generations have showed us anything, it's that democracy and individual rights and limited government don't often go hand in hand.
So Lauren thinks fewer people having the right to vote would lead to smaller government and more individual rights. I hope she explains her thought process, but for the time being, she just tells us that she's in favor of limited franchise, and she assures us that's not a radical position, it's actually the position the founding fathers had. Yeah, things have changed in the over 200 years since the Constitution was written, and I am so sick of people hiding behind the founding fathers. Anyway, Lauren doesn't see the repeal of the 19th being likely, and so conservatives need to ask themselves how to change this political nosedive. How lucky that Lauren has some suggestions.
With the idea in mind that yes, women do respond very strongly to socialization, I think the first thing that needs to be done, and we can start doing it today, is that ladies, fellow women who are on the right, we need to absolutely start enforcing the idea that it is not okay, it is not cool to be a far left communist if you are a woman, but really anybody.
Lauren goes on to say she's not encouraging people to sever friendships over this, but she's worried there are centrist women being pulled to radicalism because that's all they see. And Lauren is massively inflating the number of communists in the US. Actual communists, not what conservatives call communists. She's also massively inflating the number of radicals and leftists, but I do find it interesting that she's not encouraging people to talk policy or goals or anything like that. No, just make it clear that communism isn't cool.
We need to change what the conversation looks like surrounding politics. We need to let the world know that we are here, we are conservative, we are women, we exist. It may seem like a small thing, but solidarity, sisterhood, that is really important to a lot of women out there.
Conservatives are nothing if not masters of co-opting things they don't believe in, like feminism, and twisting them to suit their own purposes. But that's not going to change what the rest of conservatives are doing and saying. Conservatives are just not women-friendly, on a personal level and on a policy level. And though Lauren seems to be clinging on to the sisterhood idea, what kind of sisterhood is it when you're trying to convince your sisters to vote themselves into second-class citizenship?
I mean, that is specifically, explicitly how the feminist movement ended up exploding into the behemoth that it is today.
Citation needed for that entire sentence. And on that note, Lauren says they need to have a conservative mirror of that, and I would love for her to put that into words. Instead, she says it's hard because conservatives, including women, are against identity politics. And if I'm understanding Lauren correctly, identity politics is just how your identity informs your decisions?
I know it's hard because a lot of people who are conservative, including women, they're against identity politics, like almost by nature to a fault. And I understand the reticence there. You don't want to be one of those people who says, well, as a woman, because it's cringy. And that's what the left does all the time. They weaponize their own gender. But honestly, I feel like it's just something that we need to do.
What is she talking about? Conservative women use being a woman as as a talking point all the time. Anyway, Lauren thinks conservatives need to target young women more, and I have a snarky response to that, but I'll refrain. Moving on to her next idea.
Something else we really need to focus on if we want to turn the tide when it comes to young women and their politics is win back the culture. And yes, I'm absolutely talking about things like magazines, blog posts, TV shows, and movies. So often still I hear from, I don't just want to say boomers because it's not really an age thing, it's more of a mindset thing. It's boomers as a mindset. I hear those types of conservatives saying, oh, this is stupid. We need to stick to the real issues anytime someone comments on like pop culture or, something to do with entertainment. And I understand that for some of you guys, you're policy wonks. You just want to talk about what just happened on C-SPAN and this bill and Thomas Sowell. I get it. I was you. I understand it. However, that is not the sphere that young women are operating in. And I think if we want to preach conservatism or a right-wing message to them, we have to go where they are. And they are talking about Beyonce and her new country album. They are watching the latest show on Netflix or Apple TV or whatever it may be. We've known for a long time that ignoring culture and its impacts is neglecting the younger generation, but I don't think we realized how specifically it would lead us being in a deficit when it comes to women.
I'm getting the impression that we're going to ignore Republican policies in the quest to find out why young women don't trend conservative. I would like to hear more about this reclaim the culture. What does that look like? I have an idea, and judging from the reaction Daily Wire's ventures into media is receiving, I don't think it would work. Fundamentally, conservative media seems afraid to actually engage with whatever subject it's tackling, because the aim isn't to think, to challenge, it's to arrive at a preconceived conclusion. Anyway, Lauren would like to see conservatism in every aspect of culture, not just Hollywood, because leftism is inserted into every aspect of culture. I would like some examples of this claim, but I have a feeling she just said this to make her audience feel as though they're under attack, when in reality, no one cares what they do. It's also a little weird that Lauren really wants a right-wing counterbalance, but she's ignoring the conservative influencers, mommy vloggers that already exist. You would think this would be a good time to give shout-outs, but I guess we're just going for the narrative of we've been erased from culture.
And something else we absolutely need to do is strengthen institutions like church and marriage.
This is not the first time I've heard this, but for some reason, they never detail what this means.
Because guess what? Thankfully, socialization isn't just what we see on TV or talking to our friends, our fellow women. It also has to do with things like our spiritual journeys and our personal relationships.
Oh, okay. They want churches to fall in line with Republican talking points.
And statistically speaking, it is just a fact that married women and religious women are more likely to be right-wing. And we could discuss chicken and the egg here, right? Are women who are conservative more likely to get married, or are married women more likely to become conservative? I think there's an argument to be made both ways, and perhaps there's a little bit of both things happening simultaneously. But in any case, the end result means that we need to be strengthening those institutions.
And what does that look like?
We need to go all out for Jesus, and we need to go all out for marriage.
And what does that mean? If conservatives just keep saying these things with no examples of what that looks like, it's no wonder young women aren't impressed. From here, Lauren talks about a study that shows married women vote Republican more often than unmarried women, which leads Lauren to conclude we need a strong church and strong marriages, which apparently ties nicely to her final point.
Which is that if we want right-wing women, then we need to empower young men. Because here's the thing, most of what I've just said, a lot of it can be boiled down to the idea that if we want to evangelize right-wing ideas toward women, if we want women to become more conservative, then really we need to lift up young men in leadership roles. This may be controversial, but I firmly believe that if men lead, if strong, righteous Christian men lead, then yes, women will follow. Even women who might otherwise be inclined toward leftism, they will get in line and they will follow.
What is Lauren talking about? Anything by and for conservatives is already majority male leadership. They might have an odd woman here and there, but the vast majority is led by men. Is Lauren saying those men aren't good leaders, or that they should do away with women in front-facing roles entirely?
Women, we can't help it. In our bones, I mean, regardless of all the feminist noise that's out there, we do ultimately just want strong men to lead us.
Let me know in the comments. Married women, do you follow your husband? And unmarried women, are you looking for a man to follow? From here, Lauren goes to a viral TikTok, and I have to ask, what will conservatives do if TikTok is actually banned? They love it so much. I usually skip these, but let's watch.
Guys, I went on a date this week and I felt the feminism leaving my body. I live on the east side of LA, and if you don't know what that means, it's sort of like the artsier part of LA, you know? It's people say it's like Brooklyn and New York. Like, so I go on dates with a lot of men and women who, you know, live over here. There's always a negotiation about who pays, and that's great. I like to pay for people, all that. But what I will say is that I sort of fell into going on a date with the most guy's guy I've ever been on a date with. And he's from West, you know, Santa Monica. He's a bro, right? A guy's guy is usually not my type. Like, I cannot remember the last time that I went on a date with like a straight bro, you know what I'm saying? But it befell me. It befell me in an organic fashion. So I'm on this date with this guy, and the thing about a guy's guy is he's putting his card down. He's paying for everything. And I really it sort of activated something feral in me. I'm not gonna lie. We went to like another bar, and he was gonna go to the bathroom. So I was getting prepared to pay for our drinks because he's been paying all night. Of course I'm gonna pay for the next round. But as he's going to leave for the bathroom, he turns to me and he hands me his credit card. And he goes, "Here's my card. Get us whatever." It might be time for me to get away from all these, you know, liberal snowflakes on the east side.
Masculinity, strength in men, for all of the liberal programming out there, it triggers a factory reset in women. That's true. It's what happens. And some people, upon seeing that video, might say, well, she was just attracted to the money, okay? That's not just it, though, okay? That is a man who is clearly dominant and assertive, but also benevolent, right? He's not being a jerk to her. He's being kind to her. Women respond to that.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that women aren't looking for overlords, benevolent or otherwise. Anyway, I of course looked up this TikToker, and she had something to say.
Story time. I went extremely viral on Republican Twitter and then ended up on Fox News. This was honestly the most iconic and funny thing that's ever happened to me. So a few weeks ago, I went on a date with this guy, and he paid for all my drinks. And so then I posted a TikTok as a joke that was like, the feminism has left my body because this man paid for my drinks. It was a joke. It was hyperbolic. So I post that TikTok in the morning, and when I come back later in the day, it is blown up on Republican Twitter. Like, Matt Walsh, big Republican guy, I guess, posts this like podcast episode where he's analyzing my video, and he's like, yeah, she's willing to give up feminism when she gets her drinks paid for, but does she have the fortitude to give up feminism and cook and clean for her man and get in the kitchen? I was like, I don't know, Matt Walsh, it was a joke. I haven't thought that far ahead. Matt Walsh has like millions of like followers and listeners and stuff, and he starts the podcast by saying that I didn't use the word befell correctly, which is not true. I know that I used that word correctly, Matt Walsh. I actually pride myself on my extensive vocabulary, so that was insulting. You didn't have to go that far, Matt Walsh. Everybody all day on Republican Twitter is like debating this video of mine. None of them really realize that I'm like kidding. Obviously the feminism didn't actually leave my body. Unless you want to buy me a drink. No. Stop. I'm kidding. Unless you buy me a drink. No, I'm kidding. And there's like all of these like Republican think pieces that are getting like churned out about it. Progressive artsy woman says her date made the feminism leave her body. After a date with a guy's guy, one feminism says she is ready to swear off feminism and dating liberals. Okay, I didn't say that. I love this article because it just starts out with, feminism. Like, it's so condescending. Patriarchy is actually pretty great is the title. This one's maybe my favorite. It refers to me as a smitten lib chick. Smitten lib chick blown away after date with guy's guy. A lot of the articles referred to me as a self-proclaimed comedian, which I felt like that was petty. I make money from this. I'm a proclaimed comedian. This is going on all day. Finally, around 7 p.m., I get a phone call from my estranged father. Like, me and my dad don't really talk. You know, he left when I was little. He's an avid Republican. So, of course, he is the one to call me. We have not spoken on the phone in about 6 months. He calls me saying, oh my God, Maddie, I'm so proud you're on Fox News.
Dating advice from Jesse Waters. So it's Friday night, gentlemen, and you have a date with a beautiful young woman. You pick her up, open the door for her, bill comes, you pay, right? Apparently that's a foreign concept to women today.
I went on a date this week and I felt the feminism leaving my body. I sort of fell into going on a date. Why is this on national news? He's paying for everything, and I really They go on to bring a dating analyst to analyze my video. By the way, the dating analyst is just like a hot woman. Basically spends so long debating like whether or not like masculinity is dead or not. Also in my TikTok, I say that I'm bisexual, and most of my extended family did not know that I was bisexual. They all saw the clip because they all watch Fox News every night. So that is also how I came out to my entire extended family via Fox News.
This is not the first time Lauren has done this. I can't decide if she just doesn't understand comedy or she thinks her audience is stupid. Anyway, Lauren's conclusion from this is that if the right wants to flourish among women, they have to let young men naturally take their place at the forefront. Is that what the issue is? The men at the forefront are too old? Interestingly, this is the only thing that Lauren kind of explains.
And you might be wondering, okay, well, how? How do we do that? Do we just like artificially like try to prop up these weak young men who are not ready for such responsibility? And the answer is no. I think that respect and leadership needs to be earned, not given. The thing is, young men currently, right now, they are trying to lead. They are trying to assert themselves culturally, spiritually, socially. But we're not letting them. Even amongst the right, we're not letting them. I'm not just talking about liberals hating on men. Absolutely, in the conservative sphere, we love hating on young, strong men too.
Well, that was a bit more vague than I was expecting, and my only takeaway is that Lauren's husband wants a promotion. She talks about how we see articles from the David Frenches and the National Reviews about how this is insensitive and this isn't how we should do things, and okay. I guess to Lauren, to be a proper political movement, everyone must be in lockstep and no questioning or differing opinions is allowed. She did say something interesting though.
These young men who are the future of the movement.
That might be the problem. In addition to having policies that punish women, there is no room for women in conservatism. They are to stay home and look after the house and kids while the man goes out and does things. And even if women were, for some reason, willing to overlook how unfriendly Republican policies are to women, a lot of women don't want to stay home for their entire life while their spouse makes things happen. Conservatism doesn't have a place for women because it doesn't think women matter, so it shouldn't be surprised when women pass it by. Lauren concludes by saying the right has a men problem as well, and I can't quite figure out what exactly she thinks the men problem is, but it is telling that she thinks if there's young, strong men leading the movement, women will follow. Because women just love to follow? We don't think, we have no wants beyond finding a man to lead us. It's concerning to me how this language is becoming mainstream. In conclusion, the women problem is that women aren't trendy conservative, and rather than really figure out why that is, Lauren would have conservative women be more vocal and make it clear to their friends that conservative is the only acceptable political choice, and push more young men into leadership. I'm sure that will help, and women's aversion to conservatism isn't because of conservative policies or anything like that. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.